The massive alien ship appeared in space above the human colony world of New Geneva. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built. The ship looked like a giant crystal cathedral, glowing with purple light that hurt to look at directly. Inside the ship, Emperor Vex Thul of the Xantharian Galactic Empire sat on his throne, made of rare metals from 1,000 conquered worlds. The Emperor was tall and thin, with skin that changed colors like oil on water. His forearms moved gracefully as he prepared to address these new creatures called humans. Around him, his advisors whispered that these beings came from something called a death world. The Emperor found this amusing. Every planet seemed dangerous to species that were weak. "Begin transmission to the human settlement," the Emperor commanded. The communication device activated, sending his message across space to the human ships orbiting New Geneva. On the human diplomatic vessel called Defiance, Ambassador Sarah Chen was drinking coffee when the alien message came through. She was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and calm brown eyes. She had fought in the corporate wars back home and had seen terrible things. But she always kept her cool, no matter what happened. "Ambassador, we're getting a transmission from that big ship," said Lieutenant Harris, the communications officer. He was young and nervous, his hands shaking slightly as he worked the controls. "Put it on screen," Sarah said, setting down her coffee cup. She straightened her blue diplomatic uniform and faced the main display. The Emperor's image filled the screen. Behind him, Sarah could see other aliens of different shapes and sizes. Some looked like giant insects, others like walking trees, and some she couldn't even describe. All of them stared at the human ship like they were looking at insects. "Greetings, primitive creatures of the death world called Earth," the Emperor began. His translator made his voice sound cold and superior. "I am Emperor Vex Thul, ruler of 10,000 worlds and master of the greatest empire this galaxy has ever seen. You will listen to my words and obey them, without question." Sarah raised one eyebrow but said nothing. Around her, the bridge crew exchanged worried looks. The Emperor continued his speech. "Your species has somehow managed to crawl off your dangerous little planet and spread to other worlds. This is interesting. But now you have entered space that belongs to the Xantharian Empire. All space belongs to us, as is our right, as the superior race." The Emperor's four arms gestured grandly. "However, we are not cruel. We offer you a choice. Submit to our rule, pay tribute to our greatness, and accept our guidance. We will teach you civilization. We will show you how proper beings behave in this galaxy. Your alternative is simple," the Emperor's voice became harder. "Complete destruction. We have done this before, thousands of times. Species that refuse our generous offer are removed from existence. Nothing remains of them but dust and memory." Behind the Emperor, Grand Admiral Krethos stepped forward. The alien looked like a giant crab wearing military medals. "Show them our strength." "Your Imperial Majesty," the Admiral said in a voice like grinding metal. The screen changed to show the alien fleet. Sarah's coffee grew cold in her hand as she stared at the display. There were over 1,000 ships, each one the size of Earth's moon. They stretched across space like a metal forest, all pointing toward the human colony worlds. Energy weapons glowed on every ship. Fighter craft swarmed between the larger vessels like angry bees. "This is only a small part of our navy," the Emperor said, as his face returned to the screen. "We have defeated species with technology far beyond yours. We have crushed empires that ruled hundreds of systems. You humans are nothing compared to what we have already conquered." The Emperor leaned forward on his throne. "You have exactly 7 of your planet's rotations around your star to decide, submit, or be destroyed. There is no third option. This is how it has always been. This is how it will always be." Lieutenant Harris spoke up from his station. "Ambassador, they're demanding an answer. They want us to respond immediately with our surrender terms. Sarah Chen looked at the screen for a long moment. She thought about Earth, the planet where everything tried to kill everything else. She thought about the ice ages that almost wiped out humanity. She remembered the nuclear wars, the corporate conflicts, the plagues, and the disasters that her species had survived. She thought about how humans had clawed their way to the stars not through superior technology, but through pure stubbornness. The Emperor waited for her response, clearly expecting her to beg for mercy or ask for more time. His advisors whispered among themselves about how quickly these humans would surrender. Just like all the others. Instead, Sarah Chen began to laugh. It started as a small chuckle, then grew into a real laugh. The sound filled the bridge of the Defiance. The alien transmission carried her laughter back to the Imperial fleet, where it echoed through the Emperor's throne room. "Ambassador?" Lieutenant Harris asked, confused and worried. Sarah wiped tears from her eyes, still smiling. "I'm sorry," she said to her crew. "It's just, they have no idea what they just did." "Do they?" She looked back at the screen where the Emperor's face had changed from smug confidence to confusion. "Set up a direct channel to His Imperial Majesty," Sarah said, her voice now calm and professional. "I believe we need to have a proper conversation about his generous offer." The Emperor's confusion grew deeper. In all his years of conquest, no species had ever laughed at his ultimatum. Fear, anger, desperation. These were normal responses. Laughter was something new. And Emperor Vex Thul was about to learn that when humans laughed in the face of impossible odds, it meant something very different from what he expected. Ambassador Sarah Chen straightened her uniform and looked directly into the camera. Behind her, the bridge crew of the Defiance worked quietly at their stations. Everyone knew this moment would change everything. "Your Imperial Majesty," Sarah began, her voice polite but firm. "I am Ambassador Sarah Chen of the Terran Federation. Thank you for your interesting offer. I must say, it's quite generous for someone who clearly doesn't understand what they're dealing with." Emperor Vex Thul shifted on his throne. He had expected groveling, perhaps desperate bargaining. The human's calm tone confused him. "You dare to suggest that we do not understand? We have conquered thousands of species across the galaxy. Your little death world matters nothing to us." Sarah smiled, and something in that smile made the alien advisors step back slightly. "Your Majesty, that's exactly the problem. You've spent so long conquering weak species that you've forgotten what real strength looks like. Let me share some facts about my people." She gestured to Lieutenant Harris, who brought up a display showing Earth. The planet looked beautiful from space, blue and white and green. "This is our home. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you." And white. Right for one. From orbit, it looks peaceful, doesn't it? But every single day on this world, something tries to kill every living thing on it. The display changed to show Earth's history. Images of massive storms, earthquakes, volcanoes, and ice ages flashed across the screen. We survived ice ages that should have wiped us out. We lived through plagues that killed half our population. We endured wars where we nearly destroyed ourselves with nuclear weapons. Grand Admiral Krethos clicked his claws dismissively. "Many species have faced natural disasters. This proves nothing." "Number." Sarah's smile grew wider. "Admiral, you misunderstand. We didn't just survive these things. We thrived because of them. Every disaster made us stronger. Every challenge taught us new ways to adapt and overcome. While your empire conquered the weak, we were being forged by forces that would have crushed any of your member species." She paused to take a sip of her coffee, as if discussing the weather, rather than rejecting an ultimatum from the galaxy's most powerful empire. "Let me tell you what humans do when faced with impossible odds. We don't surrender. We don't bargain. We study the problem, find its weaknesses, and then we take it apart, piece by piece. The Emperor's skin color shifted to angry red patterns. Your arrogance will be your destruction, human. We have weapons that can crack planets. We have armies that have never known defeat. I'm sure you do. Sarah agreed pleasantly. But here's what you don't have. Experience fighting people who consider survival a hobby. You've never faced a species that looks at a galactic empire and thinks, well, that's a nice challenge. Wonder how long it'll take us to dismantle it. She leaned back in her chair, completely relaxed. Your Majesty, you made one critical error in your calculations. You assumed that because we come from one planet, we must be weak. But Earth isn't just any planet. It's the planet that produced the only species to ever look at hostile space and decide to colonize it anyway. Lieutenant Harris brought up new images showing human achievements. Space stations built inside asteroids. Colonies on worlds with poisonous atmospheres. Cities floating on gas giants. We don't just adapt to environments, Your Majesty. We make impossible environments adapt to us. The alien advisors whispered among themselves, their confidence beginning to waver. Sarah heard their translator struggling with human concepts they had no words for. Let me make our position clear, Sarah continued, her diplomatic politeness never wavering. The Terran Federation appreciates your invitation to join your empire. We must respectfully decline. Instead, we have a counteroffer. Emperor Vexthul's forearms trembled with rage. You dare to make demands of us? Not demands, Your Majesty. A simple request. We formally ask that you remove your forces from human-claimed systems within 72 standard hours. After that time, we will consider your presence an act of war against the Terran Federation. The throne room erupted in shocked, chittering and clicking from the alien advisors. Grand Admiral Krethos stepped forward, his crab-like claws snapping. Impossible! We have 1,000 ships. You have a handful of primitive vessels. Sarah's laugh returned, softer this time but somehow more frightening. Admiral, that's where you're wrong. What you see around our colony worlds are diplomatic ships. You haven't met our military yet. And trust me, you really don't want to. End quote. She stood up, and despite being just one human on a small ship, her presence seemed to fill the Imperial throne room. Your Majesty, let me educate you about Deathworlders. We're the species that took a planet trying to kill us every single day and turned it into the most successful ecosystem in known space. We're the people who looked at the vacuum of space and said, that looks like a nice place to build a civilization. Rude. The Emperor's skin colors shifted rapidly, showing his emotional state. What could your pathetic species possibly do against our might? Sarah's smile became something that would have made Earth's ancient predators proud. Your Imperial Majesty, you've clearly never dealt with humans before. We don't fight fair. We don't fight honorably. We fight to win, and we've had 4 million years of practice. She gestured to the display showing the Imperial fleet. Those beautiful ships of yours? They're designed to intimidate civilized species into surrender. But we're not civilized, Your Majesty. We're domesticated. And there's a very important difference. Lieutenant Harris put new images on screen. Human children playing combat games. Human sports that would be considered warfare by most species. Human entertainment that involved simulated violence and strategy. We turn conflict into recreation. We teach our children tactics as games. We compete with each other for fun, in ways that would terrify your warriors. Sarah sat back down, completely calm. So here's what's going to happen, Your Majesty. You're going to take your 1,000 pretty ships and leave our space. You're going to go back to conquering species that know how to surrender properly. And in return, we won't demonstrate why Earth never needed to build a galactic empire. The Emperor stared at her in disbelief. Why would Earth not need an empire? Sarah's final smile was the most terrifying thing the Emperor had ever seen. "Because, Your Majesty, we never bothered to expand. We've been too busy enjoying ourselves. But if you insist on waking up the galactic empire that Earth could have built any time in the last 1,000 years, well..." The transmission ended, leaving the Imperial throne room in stunned silence. Emperor Vexthul stared at the blank screen, trying to understand what had just happened. In his long life of conquest, no one had ever spoken to him like that. No one had ever treated his ultimate power as an amusing inconvenience. And deep in his mind, a small voice whispered that perhaps these humans were not like the others he had conquered. Admiral Krethos stood in the Imperial Command Center, his crab-like claws clicking nervously against his metals. 3 days had passed since the human ambassador's impossible ultimatum. The 72-hour deadline was almost over, and the Admiral expected the humans to contact them any moment with a proper surrender. "Your Imperial Majesty," Krethos said to Emperor Vexthul, "the humans have made no attempt to communicate. Their diplomatic vessels remain in orbit around their colonies, doing nothing. They are clearly too frightened to respond." The Emperor nodded, his skin showing pleased purple patterns. "As expected. No doubt they are preparing their surrender terms. Even Deathworlders must eventually face reality." Suddenly, the ship's detection systems began making urgent warning sounds. Sensor Officer Ziltak, a being that looked like a giant praying mantis, turned from his station with wide compound eyes. "My lord." Ziltak's voice was high and worried. "I'm detecting massive gravitational anomalies at the edge of human space. Something very large is moving through faster than light travel." Krethos scuttled over to the sensor display. "Show me." The main screen lit up with sensor readings that made no sense. The gravitational signatures were enormous, bigger than anything in the Imperial databases, but they were moving in patterns that seemed impossible. "There." Ziltak pointed with one mantis arm. "Multiple contacts. Emerging. From hyperspace." Space itself seemed to twist and tear open. Through the holes in reality, shapes began to emerge. First came small ships that moved like hunting animals, circling and prowling through space. Then came larger vessels, each one different from the others. Admiral Krethos watched in growing confusion as the human fleet revealed itself. These were not the primitive metal boxes he had expected. The ships were clearly alive, their hulls breathing like skin, their weapons turning to track the Imperial fleet like eyes following prey. "How many ships?" the Emperor demanded. Ziltak's voice cracked. I cannot tell, Your Imperial Majesty. They keep appearing. Some of them are reading as biological, not mechanical." The largest ship emerged last, and it made the Imperial dreadnoughts look small. The vessel was built from what appeared to be a captured asteroid, but the rock had been shaped and modified. Weapons bristled from every surface. The name painted on its side read, "Terra's Wrath," in letters that seemed to glow with their own inner fire. A communication signal reached the Imperial flagship. The image that appeared on screen was a human male wearing a military uniform decorated with strange symbols. His skin was dark, his hair gray at the temples, and his eyes held the calm confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. "Greetings, Your Imperial Majesty," the human said with a slight smile. "I am Admiral Marcus Rodriguez of the Terran Defense Force. I believe you've been having discussions with Ambassador Chen." Emperor Vexthul stared at the human. What is the meaning of this? Where did these ships come from?" Admiral Rodriguez chuckled. "You wanted to meet Deathworlders, Your Majesty. Congratulations. You're about to learn why we call ourselves the apex predators of a planet that spent 4 million years trying to kill us." The camera view expanded to show the human ship's bridge. What the Emperor saw there made his skin shift to colors of fear and confusion. Humans worked alongside creatures that clearly came from their death world. Dolphins with cybernetic enhancements swimming through tubes of water, operating advanced targeting systems. Chimpanzees with mechanical arms controlled weapons arrays with frightening precision. And perched above it all, blackbirds with eyes too intelligent for any natural animal coordinated the fleet's movements. "You brought animals to fight us?" Krithos demanded, trying to sound brave. "Animals?" Rodriguez's smile became wider. "Admiral, meet my tactical officer, Commander Flipper. She's a dolphin. Her brain processes three-dimensional combat faster than your best computers. And this is Colonel Caesar, my ground assault commander. He's a chimpanzee with an IQ of 200 and a very bad attitude toward bullies." The dolphin made clicking sounds that the translator rendered as tactical assessments that made Imperial strategists look like children. The chimpanzee signed with his hands, and the translator said, "Colonel Caesar wants to know if your ships taste good. He's considering having them for lunch." Above them all, a raven cawed once, and the entire human fleet shifted formation with perfect precision. "And that's General Hugin. I'm on about 80 PIUTs," Rodriguez explained. "She coordinates our battle plans. Ravens from Earth can solve puzzles that stump most sapient species. We gave her a few upgrades." Emperor Vex Thul's voice shook. "This is impossible. Animals cannot be made intelligent." "Your Imperial Majesty," Rodriguez said patiently. "You really don't understand Earth. Do you? Everything on our planet is dangerous. Everything fights for survival every day. We didn't just uplift these species' intelligence. We awakened the strategic minds that were already there." The sensor readings continued to pour in as more human ships appeared. Vessels that seemed to be grown rather than built, with hulls that rippled and changed shape. Ships that phased in and out of normal space like ghosts. Craft that moved through dimensions the Imperial sensors couldn't even detect. "How many ships do you have?" Krithos demanded. Rodriguez looked thoughtful. "Well, this is just the third fleet. We've got 12 fleets total, though most of them are defending other systems. Earth itself has the home fleet, but we didn't want to leave our planet undefended. You never know when someone might try something stupid." He gestured to the display showing his forces. "Each ship out here represents a different aspect of human warfare, Admiral. That one there is called Normandy's Revenge. She specializes in impossible landings. Stalingrad's lesson never retreats and always wins through attrition. Thermopylae's stand can hold off forces 1,000 times her size." "What do those names mean?" the Emperor asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. "Oh, they're named after battles from our history," Rodriguez explained cheerfully. "Battles where humans faced impossible odds and won anyway. We have a lot of those. Humans tend to be very good at turning certain defeat into legendary victory." The Terra's wrath moved closer to the Imperial fleet, and the Emperor could see that its weapons were unlike anything in his experience. Instead of energy cannons or missile launchers, the ship seemed to bend space itself around its targets. "Your Imperial Majesty," Rodriguez continued, "Ambassador Chen gave you fair warning. We asked nicely for you to leave our space. Since you've chosen not to accept our reasonable request, we're here to provide a more hands-on education about Deathworld species." Admiral Krithos tried to sound commanding. "We have 1,000 ships. You cannot defeat the might of the Imperial Navy." Commander Flipper clicked something that sounded like laughter. The translation came through as, "Commander Flipper says she's sunk bigger fleets during training exercises. She also says, your formations are very pretty, but completely useless for actual combat." Colonel Caesar signed rapidly, and the translator rendered his words. "Colonel Caesar appreciates that your ships are so large. He says they'll make excellent targets for his boarding parties. He wants to know if any of your crew taste like chicken." General Hugin cawed once, and suddenly every ship in the human fleet turned to focus on the Imperial command vessel. The movement was so perfectly coordinated that it looked like a single organism turning to study prey. "Now then," Admiral Rodriguez said, his casual tone making the threat even more frightening. "Shall we begin your education about why Deathworlders don't make good victims?" The human fleet began to move forward, and space itself seemed to bend around them. Emperor Vexthal realized that everything he thought he knew about warfare was about to be proven wrong. What happened next was not a battle. It was a lesson. And the Imperial Navy was about to learn why humans had survived on the most dangerous planet in known space. Admiral Rodriguez spoke calmly into his communication system. "All ships, begin educational demonstration. Remember, we want them functional enough to go home and tell everyone what they learned today." The human fleet moved like nothing the Empire had ever seen. Their ships didn't advance in the straight lines that civilized warfare demanded. Instead, they flowed through space like schools of hunting fish, each vessel moving independently, but somehow perfectly coordinated with all the others. Admiral Krethos tried to respond with traditional Imperial tactics. "All ships, form battle line. Prepare main weapons. Show these primitives the power of the Empire." The Imperial dreadnoughts moved into their standard formation. A wall of massive ships designed to overwhelm enemies with pure firepower. It was a formation that had conquered thousands of worlds. Their weapons charged up, ready to reduce the human fleet to space dust. But the humans weren't where the Imperial targeting systems expected them to be. Where did they go? Sensor Officer Ziltok clicked frantically at his controls. "I had them on sensors, and now they're everywhere and nowhere." The human ships had simply vanished from normal space. Some phased into different dimensions. Others bent light around themselves to become invisible. And a few seemed to stop existing entirely until they were needed. The first sign that something was wrong came when Imperial ship Zexmar simply stopped working. All its systems went dark, its weapons powered down, and its engines died. The massive dreadnought drifted helplessly in space. "What happened to Zexmar?" Emperor Vexthol demanded. Before anyone could answer, 3 more Imperial ships went dark. Then 5 more. The mighty dreadnoughts were being disabled faster than the Empire could track what was happening to them. "Sir." Ziltok's voice was high with panic. "I'm detecting human ships inside our formation. They're everywhere." Ziltoks. On the main screen, the Imperial command staff watched in horror as sleek human ships flickered in and out of normal space. One moment there was empty space. The next moment, a human vessel appeared, did something to an Imperial ship, and disappeared again. Commander Flipper's voice came through the communication system, translated from her dolphin clicking. "Human ship tsunami here. Just borrowed some of your engine parts. Imperial guys. Don't worry. We'll give them back when we're done playing." Another human ship appeared right next to an Imperial dreadnought. This one was piloted by enhanced chimpanzees, and Colonel Caesar's translated voice was full of amusement. "This is monkey business to Fleet Command. These big ships are really slow. It's like trying to fight sleeping elephants." Admiral Krethos watched his formation fall apart as human ships popped in and out of existence, always appearing where they weren't expected, always striking where the Imperial ships couldn't defend. "How are they doing this?" the Admiral demanded. "Sir," Ziltok reported, his compound eyes wide with fear. "They're using technologies we don't understand. Some ships are moving through folded space, others are existing in multiple dimensions at once. And that big one, the Terra's Wrath, it's doing something to gravity itself." As if summoned by his words, the Terra's Wrath appeared directly in front of the Imperial command ship. The massive vessel, built from a modified asteroid, seemed to loom over them like a mountain in space. Admiral Rodriguez's face appeared on their screens again. Behind him, his bridge crew of humans and uplifted animals worked with casual efficiency. The Dolphin Commander Flipper was having what appeared to be a friendly argument with a raven about targeting priorities. "Your Imperial Majesty," Rodriguez said pleasantly. "Are you enjoying the demonstration? We're showing you human warfare at about 10% intensity. We didn't want to accidentally hurt anyone. 10%? Emperor Vex Thul's voice cracked. Oh yes, full-intensity human warfare is what we use against existential threats. Right now we're just playing. Watch this. The Terra's Wrath's main weapon activated. Instead of firing energy beams or missiles, the ship created a small black hole near an Imperial dreadnought. The gravitational field grabbed the enemy ship and began spinning it like a toy, completely disabling its weapons and engines without destroying it. We call that a gravity lasso, Rodriguez explained. It's based on technology we developed for asteroid mining back home. Very useful for catching things that don't want to be caught. More human ships appeared throughout the Imperial formation. They moved with impossible grace, dodging Imperial weapons that couldn't track their movements. When the Empire's powerful energy beams did hit human ships, the vessels seemed to absorb the energy and become stronger. Those are our bioships, Rodriguez continued his casual commentary. Grown from modified Earth predators. They heal damage automatically and adapt to new threats in real time. The more you shoot them, the better they get at not being shot. One human pilot's voice came through the communication system, whooping with joy. Yahoo! Did you see that barrel roll? I just turned a dreadnought into a pretzel. Physics is more like guidelines anyway. Another pilot laughed as she disabled 2 Imperial ships simultaneously. These guys fight like they're following a textbook. Don't they know how to improvise? Admiral Krethos realized with growing horror that the humans weren't just winning. They were having fun. Their communication channels were full of laughter, jokes, and what the translator labeled as enthusiastic, recreational, combat terminology. They're enjoying this, he whispered. Of course they are, Rodriguez said, apparently hearing the Admiral's comment. Fighting is what humans do for entertainment when we're not actually at war. Our children play combat games. Our sports are simulated warfare. Our video games are training for battles we haven't fought yet. 2. General Hugin cawed from her perch, and instantly every human ship in the fleet changed tactics simultaneously. The coordination was so perfect that it looked like a single mind, controlling hundreds of bodies. General Hugin just pointed out that your formations are very inefficient, Rodriguez translated. She's implemented a new strategy to disable your remaining ships more quickly. Ravens are excellent strategic thinkers. In 3 minutes, the remaining Imperial ships found themselves completely helpless. Some were caught in gravity fields, others had their systems mysteriously shut down. And a few were gently but firmly held in place by ships that seemed to be made of living metal. Not a single Imperial ship had been destroyed. But the mighty Imperial Navy, the force that had conquered thousands of worlds, had been completely neutralized by creatures who treated warfare like their favorite sport. Emperor Vex Thul stared at the displays, showing his powerless fleet. In 6 hours, the humans had achieved what he thought would be impossible: the complete defeat of an empire that had never known failure. How? He whispered. Rodriguez heard the question. Your Imperial Majesty, you built an empire by conquering the weak. We built our civilization by surviving the impossible. You fight to dominate. We fight to win. And we've had 4 million years of practice on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. The Emperor's skin shifted through colors of defeat and confusion. What do you want from us? Rodriguez's smile became warmer, less predatory. Just to go home and leave us alone, Your Imperial Majesty. We didn't want to fight you. We just wanted you to understand that humans aren't good victims. Admiral Krethos looked at his disabled fleet and realized that the Empire had encountered something it had never faced before. A species that was stronger than they were, and smart enough not to abuse that strength. The lesson was over. Now came the real test of whether the Empire was wise enough to learn from it. The Imperial command ship drifted in space, all its weapons disabled but its life support systems working perfectly. Emperor Vexthul sat on his throne, staring at displays that showed his entire fleet helplessly caught in human gravity fields or simply shut down by technologies he didn't understand. A strange shimmer appeared in the air next to his throne. The Emperor's guards raised their weapons, but before they could fire, Ambassador Sarah Chen materialized on his bridge. She had somehow transported herself directly through the ship's shields, as if they didn't exist. Behind her stood two humans wearing armor that seemed to bend space around their bodies. They weren't pointing weapons at anyone, but something about them made every alien in the throne room step back. "Your Imperial Majesty," Sarah said with the same polite tone she had used during their first conversation. "I believe we need to finish our earlier discussion." The Emperor's forearms trembled, but not with rage this time. "How did you get here?" "Our shields are the most powerful in the galaxy." Sarah smiled and gestured to one of her guards. "Lieutenant Park here specializes in dimensional mechanics. She found 17 different ways to get through your shields. We picked the most polite one." Lieutenant Park nodded respectfully to the Emperor. "Your defenses are very impressive, Your Imperial Majesty. They would stop any normal attack. But humans stopped fighting normal wars about 3,000 years ago." The Emperor looked around his throne room, seeing his advisors and guards backing away from the three humans. These beings from the Deathworld stood in the heart of his empire, as if they belonged there. "What do you want?" he asked quietly. Sarah sat down in a chair that hadn't been there a moment before. Lieutenant Park had somehow created furniture from nothing. "We want to renegotiate our previous discussion, Your Imperial Majesty. I believe the terms need some adjustment." Grand Admiral Krethos stepped forward, his crab-like claws clicking nervously. "You cannot make demands of us. Even defeated, we are still the Empire." The other human guard, a woman whose nameplate read Sergeant Kim, looked at the Admiral with mild interest. "Sir, your Empire just got schooled by one small human fleet. Are you really sure you want to keep making threats?" Sarah held up a hand to stop any further discussion. "Let me explain the new situation, Your Imperial Majesty. The Xantharian Empire will immediately withdraw from all human-claimed systems. You will release any species currently held against their will, and you will establish formal diplomatic relations with the Terran Federation." "And if we refuse?" Emperor Vexthul asked, though his voice lacked any real defiance. Sarah's smile became something that reminded the Emperor why humans came from a death world. "Your Imperial Majesty, what you saw today was a training exercise for us. We disabled your fleet without breaking a sweat because we wanted to be polite about it." She gestured toward the displays showing the helpless Imperial ships. "But if you make us actually angry, well, Earth has spent the last 1,000 years developing military technology just for fun. Would you like to see what humans build when we're actually trying to hurt someone?" Lieutenant Park spoke up helpfully. "We've got planet crackers, star killers, and something called a universe annoyer that we're still not sure what it does. The lab guys won't let us test it because they're worried it might break physics." Sergeant Kim nodded. "Plus all the biological stuff. Plagues that only affect specific DNA patterns, nanobots that eat metal, and my personal favorite, combat fungi that can take over entire ecosystems." The Emperor's skin color shifted to pale, frightened patterns. "You would destroy worlds?" "Oh no," Sarah said quickly. "We'd never destroy anything. That's wasteful. We'd just repurpose your empire, turn your conquest fleet into a merchant marine, convert your weapons to mining tools, transform your military bases into schools and hospitals." She leaned forward, and her voice became gentle but implacable. "Your Imperial Majesty, you tried to conquer the species that took a planet of apex predators and turned it into a nature preserve. We don't destroy our enemies, we domesticate them." Admiral Krethos made a sound that the translator couldn't interpret. "Domesticate?" Sergeant Kim grinned. Like we did with wolves, sir. Turn them into dogs. Still dangerous when they need to be, but happy to work with us instead of against us. The implications of this hit the Emperor like a physical blow. You would change us? Not change, Sarah corrected. Just redirect your talents towards something more useful. Your empire is very good at organization and logistics. Those are valuable skills. You could help coordinate trade routes, manage resource distribution, maybe even help with terraforming projects. She stood up and walked to the Emperor's throne. Despite being surrounded by alien guards, she moved without fear. Your Imperial Majesty, you have a choice. You can work with us as equals, or you can discover what happens when humans stop being polite and start being creative. Lieutenant Park added, We've already got 17 species that chose to work with us after similar discussions. They seem much happier now. Better food, better technology, and no more need to conquer anyone. The Emperor looked at his advisors, seeing fear and confusion in their faces. Then he looked back at Sarah Chen. This small human female who had somehow become the most powerful being in his throne room. How can you be so confident? We still have thousands of other fleets. Sarah's laugh was warm and genuine. Your Imperial Majesty, this conversation is being broadcast to every ship in your empire. By now, they've all seen what happened to your invincible fleet. How many of them do you think want to test their luck against angry humans? As if to prove her point, communication signals began flooding the Imperial command ship. Admiral Krethos looked at the displays with growing dismay. My lord, he reported, his voice hollow. We're receiving surrender requests from all of them. Every fleet in the Empire is requesting permission to negotiate with the humans. Sarah nodded as if this was perfectly normal. Your Imperial Majesty, it's not just your military. We're getting applications from 17 different species asking to join the Terran Federation. Apparently, word has spread about how we treat our allies. She gestured to Lieutenant Park, who produced a document from nowhere. This is a standard alliance treaty. Very reasonable terms. Mutual defense, free trade, shared technology, and absolutely no conquest of unwilling species. Most importantly, everyone gets to keep their own governments and cultures. The Emperor took the document with shaking hands. And if we sign this? Oh. Then, the Terran Federation gains a very large and efficient ally, Sarah said warmly. And the Xantharian Empire becomes the first galactic power to voluntarily evolve beyond conquest. You'll be remembered as the Emperor who chose wisdom over warfare. She paused, then added with a grin. Plus, humans throw really good parties. You haven't lived until you've been to a Terran barbecue. Emperor Vexthul looked at the treaty, then at his defeated fleet, then at this impossible human who had somehow turned the conquest of his empire into a job interview. Very well, he said quietly. The Xantharian Empire accepts alliance with the Terran Federation. Sarah smiled and extended her hand. Welcome to the family, Your Imperial Majesty. As the Emperor shook hands with the human ambassador, he realized that he had just experienced something that would be remembered for thousands of years. The first time in galactic history that an empire had been defeated by kindness backed up with overwhelming force. Outside the ship, Admiral Rodriguez's fleet began the gentle process of escorting the Imperial ships away from human space. But instead of exile, it felt like the beginning of something new. Ambassador Sarah Chen filed her final report later that day. It read, Mission accomplished. One empire educated, several dozen species liberated, and humanity's reputation as the galaxy's most politely terrifying neighbors firmly established. Request permission to begin formal integration protocols. Also, we're going to need more barbecue sauce. The galaxy would never be the same. And for the first time in thousands of years, that was a good thing.